Hi. I'm here to give out the full truth, only the truth, and the real truth. I have scientific evidence, I have philosophical evidence, I have chemistry, math, physics, quantum mechanics. I can go as far as the eye can see. My heart will be in this, and I will try not to anger anyone out there. I do believe Jesus is the way, and I have many historical and factual evidence for that. History, and this is true, history says that 80% of the Bible has been found historically, which points to a very factual Bible, a very factual book. This doesn't mean the 20% isn't true. This only means that, hey, it's not a fairy tale. It's not a lie. Scientifically, what do I think about God? God can exist within our universe. According to quantum waves, God can exist in our universe. According to quantum mechanics, God has all the properties which allows him to exist in the universe, and physics shows that God has all the properties that allows him to exist in our universe. And God doesn't need physics to exist within our universe, but he exists within the laws of physics, and he is all-powerful. Why God is perfect, and I took this off of someone else, but God really is perfect because he relies on nothing else but himself to exist. His own existence relies on himself. What is matter created from? If we had an answer, it would probably, the best non-biblical answer, non-godly answer would be energy. Ironically, energy has very many properties of God. Ironically. Energy is eternal. So is God. And in quantum mechanics, energy may just be all-knowing. A lot of people think energy is an innate thing that doesn't know anything. But in quantum mechanics, energy may just be all-knowing simply because of the entanglement theory showing this about information. Information travels through a medium of energy in all sorts of ways and forms. Energy building up everything, even matter, and energy and information flowing through every little thing must go through energy. So information flows on top of energy, and therefore energy would have access to all information. So technically, energy is all-knowing. Energy is absolutely everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. In the universe, energy is infinitely everywhere. There is no such place in the universe where there isn't energy. Energy lies dormant beyond every matter, beyond everything. Energy has no number. What I'm saying is that energy is never destroyed, and energy is everywhere. So that is one property that God holds. And this may sound, and you don't have to believe this part, you don't have to take it in. This is actually only my own, this part, all the other three were just facts. I'm about to head into an opinion, please take it lightly. On a scientific experiment called the double slit experiment, which I recently discovered that their instruments could not affect the matter because they used a screen to see the matter, not a scope. So light would not have affected the electron. In this thing where mere observation affects if an electron acts as a wave or a wave function, showing that our consciousness affects energy, thus pointing that energy may equal consciousness in one sense or another, because the only thing that can affect energy, the only thing that can affect matter, is energy and other matter. Consciousness should not be able to affect matter. However, it does. Pointing to consciousness equals energy, which means energy is equal to consciousness in such terms. And I just studied quantum mechanics. This summer I studied the intro to quantum mechanics, and I plan on finishing that again next summer in 2014. So thus all the properties of God exist in the universe, and if you don't believe in God, I will explain that later, but that's fine. But scientifically, God can exist. Scientifically, God is easier for God to exist than anything that you know possible. It's easier for God to exist theoretically than it is for other things to exist. It's easier to format the blueprint of God, which it's very hard to explain God as one being, of course, but it's easier to show that God can exist than it is to format something else. And a lot of people thought it was easier to format evolution than it was to format God. And this is sort of false in a sense with the science we have today. But let's continue. Jesus is a unique Savior. And yes, I have studied both Buddha and Jesus. Buddha was a man who said he was awake. Buddha also admitted himself that he was not God. He was not the Son of God or nothing like that. A lot of people follow Buddha as if he was, which he himself said he wasn't. So there's the issue there. But you can find an even more peace relies with Jesus. A lot of people misunderstand Jesus. They think they can do anything they want just because they have that I can get forgiven. But we'll continue. Jesus was awesome. Historically, Jesus was known. He was in the Roman records. The Catholics took every description of Jesus and put it in as the New Testament. Of course, the Catholics weren't perfect, and nowadays the Catholics don't even follow some of Jesus' teachings. And just because they don't doesn't mean he didn't exist. I don't know where people get that. Such as you're not supposed to call anybody Father except God. Refer to him as Father, like that. I personally only call my dad Dad, and I call God the Father. I don't care how ridiculous you think this is. It's not ridiculous to me. I probably feel something you don't. I feel at peace. I feel relaxed. I have no fear. None whatsoever. Does this mean does this mean that I'm going to stand there and get shot at and not run away? No. Does this mean that if someone pulls a blade, I'm not going to try and defend myself or someone else? No. Christians hold something, it's called courage. And not every Christian may have it. But the ones who truly believe have this courage. And a lot of people try to say it's faulty or it's false. And this courage has saved so many people. It is untold, like numbers. Like I can't even tell you how many articles, I can't even tell you how many articles. This one man walked into a restaurant with a gun, and this actually happened recently in the news. Tried to fire his weapon at the clerk. It went click, click. Went outside the restaurant, and then he tried to fire again. It fired. He fixed it, so-called fixed it or whatever, and then fired it to make sure it worked. Went back into the restaurant, pointed at the clerk, and went click, click again, and then the cops arrested him. Maybe a coincidence, but I don't know. It's just one of thousands of odd coincidences like that. Maybe belief in God and Jesus gives us luck. I don't know. But I do believe that He saves us and He watches over the ones who truly believe. Not the fakers, but the ones who truly believe. And I'm not pointing fingers. And I have a question for the evolutionists, the materialists, which I am part, because I believe in quantum mechanics and physics. I believe in science. I believe in God. And I can show there's a God through science easily. But science actually is against evolution. Evolution has been deemed one of the sciences above quantum mechanics, ? And evolution has no scientific basis for it. It uses historical basis based off of fossils they found and put all together to form a human body. When biology shows that there is DNA evidence of interbreeding rather than macroevolution, which macroevolution isn't even proved with real science, and which chemistry is against evolution because you need a cell to actually form another cell, which is kind of crazy. And the mathematical probability against the universe creating life on its own is 10 to 1,123 power. 10 to the 10,123 power. 1 and 10 to the 10,123 power. This is a fraction. And it is a humongous fraction. This fraction is so humongous. You can take there's only 10 to the 78th power of atoms in the universe according to science, which is bigger than Google, obviously. But this fraction is so huge. It's so huge. that has been deemed impossible. And this is just mathematics. And I'm not saying, oh, well, actually I am saying evolution is false. Do I know it's false? Yes. I actually say, hey, evolution is false. And you say, well, what? Are you a scientist? Do you know? Or whatever. Just because I'm not a scientist doesn't mean I don't know. I read 17 different articles showing that evolution is false. I looked for articles to prove evolution. I found one. And when I read the article, it was based off the exact same contradictions it poses for itself. Evolution contradicts itself entirely and eternally. And in fact, video evidence has been shown where human feet have been found with dinosaur feet. Little scientific things, just little things that show evolution is false. Even an evolutionist said that evolution can be deemed false because it has so much evidence. That's a contradiction. Could a murderer be deemed false because there is so much evidence against them? Could a murderer be deemed innocent because there is so much evidence against them? That is a contradiction against science. Evolution has no scientific basis. Evolution is actually philosophical. It's more philosophy than God is. And lots of people wonder, why do people, even atheists, there's atheists out there who don't believe in evolution. They are. I've spoken to people that say they admit there is so many falses with evolution. Right now there's supposed to be millions of species in between the human and Neanderthal, which has been deemed false already because the human was 200,000 years ago, according to the Homo sapien was 200,000 years ago. The Neanderthal was 230,000 years ago. So now they have to be deemed cousins rather than ancestors. So evolution is falsified. Then we go to embryonic evolution, which is also falsified because in 1877 the man was proved that he faked his drawings. And then the problem with evolution is no one took it further than Darwin did. Darwin said many things which have been proven falsified. And on Darwin's deathbed, he said on his deathbed that he believed in God and that he knew that his theory was wrong. On his deathbed, Darwin himself said that on his deathbed. And where can you take evolution? Nowhere. You can't take it anywhere. What's the evolutionary bias between birds and reptiles, which not even some of the birds come from this one bird with a tooth, which has been extinct. And I am saying boldly that evolution is false. In your opinion, evolution can be a fact. But I used to believe in evolution from the time I was 15 to 16 to 17. Stopped believing it at 17 years old. And I don't believe in it because I believe in God. I don't say I don't believe in evolution because I believe in God. That is not what I'm saying. When I was 15, I perfectly believed in both God and evolution at the same time. It is a possibility, and yes, it was factually true. What you would have to do is basically say philosophical that Genesis 1 through 5 was more philosophical, describing the relationship with God, man, and the universe in a more simple way, rather than complicating everything and where a man wouldn't be able to understand it in primitive times. So that is what I did, and it made a lot of sense. And then when I got to 17, I discovered so many freaking flaws with evolution. And I can go again with God. I looked at all the proofs for God, I looked at proofs for God. I kept looking and looking and looking and looking. There is hundreds upon thousands of proofs for God. Yet there's only two that try to disprove God, and what they try to say is basically inevitably wrong. One tries to say there's no such thing as an eternal thing in the universe, when energy is eternal. Quoted by Einstein. Another tried to say that no such thing as infinity can exist within the universe. Well, guess what, buddy? Black holes exist, and they are infinitely small. Infinitely small. According to even quantum mechanics shows that they are infinitely small. So, can infinity exist within the universe? Yes. If I drove a light beam all the way out there, 1,000,000 years from now, I'd be 1,000,000 years away. If I drove it 2,000,000 years from now, I'll be 2,000,000 years away. If I drove it 13 billion years from now, I'll be 13 billion years away. If I drove it 14 trillion years from now, I'll be 14 trillion years away. And guess what? That light beam's going to keep on going. Nothing's going to stop that light beam. It will go right through a planet. Just like the light goes through certain planets. It doesn't show, but it does. The ints do, the quarks do. All the particles go through the planet, not necessarily all the light. So that light will keep on traveling into the distance of darkness. Darkness has no power over light. Light won't ever stop. It just keeps on going. So technically, infinity exists multiple times within the universe. It is just one of the stones that quantum mechanics hate. Quantum mechanic physicists hate infinity because they can't control something that is infinite. They can't understand. They can't put it into an understanding, into a mathematical equation if it is infinite. That is a problem. Light is a constant, which is in a way infinite. Light will always travel at the same speed, but it will always go in one direction infinitely. So, those two that are against God have been shown to be wrong. So, what's against God? Nothing. What's against evolution? Many, many things. All kinds of, and I'm not just, and I don't hate evolution. I don't hate it. But I'm just saying, it's been proven false many, many times. I don't understand why the scientific committee accepts evolution. As a matter of fact, we aren't termed as creationists till evolution came into existence. Evolution is a science that claims to be above all other sciences. Yet evolution doesn't even start with the sun. It doesn't start with the earth. It doesn't start with anything. It starts with a cell. It doesn't start with what created that cell. It starts with a cell. It must start with the earth, must start with the sun, it actually has to start with a theory of creation, which would probably be the Big Bang or something like that. And I'm not saying the Big Bang is false. I don't mind the idea of a Big Bang. If a Big Bang is proven, then that's okay. That doesn't affect Christianity. Evolution doesn't affect Christianity. And a lot of people like to use evolution against Christianity, but how can evolution even be used against Christianity? The fact of the matter is, there's 1,400 chromosomes, 1,400 genomes difference between an ape and a human, which is about 1 in 4%. And that is a lot of genomes. And biology proves that a genome doesn't change. Genomes don't change. They just use genomes that they already have, so it shows programming. Life can't be programmed by itself, according to biology. Again, that just points to God, and that's the problem with evolutionists, is if you prove evolution wrong, you're just showing that there is a God. So evolutionists probably made by atheists, which wasn't really made by atheists, was made by a Christian, and there are some Christians who believe in evolution. I've met them before, and it's not impossible. Even I met one of the most scientific people who did not believe in evolution, believed in quantum mechanics and such. And quantum mechanics shows some scenarios actually need a God. Some scenarios actually need an observer. Some scenarios actually need an omnipotent being. Some scenarios actually need something to be there in quantum mechanics. And I'm not just talking about the observer effect. I'm talking about consciousness, self-awareness. Other beings don't have what humans have, and if they did, it would be alright. And then you get into biology. Chemicals alone don't express emotion, according to biology. And this has been proven, like love, guilt, hate. If it was all chemicals, then how come you can stop hate that fast? How come someone can go from being angry to being calm that fast? With just and another person with the same chemical balance as the other person just dwell on the hate. I mean, maybe it's in the genes. Maybe it's not. Serial killers. Some serial killers have the same genes as we do. Some don't. Lots of people think it's a chemical imbalance. Other people think it's genes. Other people think it's environmental. Which some people are raised in a different environmental scenario and actually come out better than any other person you met. And I'm a loving person. So, God is the truth. Scientifically, biblically, philosophically, theoretically, God's the truth. Whether evolution exists or not. The problem with evolution, if it did exist, it would need a creator. Evolution forces a creator. So evolution is not the way out. Because the life, it starts with life. Evolution starts with a single cell organism. It's been proven over and over, amino acids don't turn into cells. They just replicate cells. It's been proven over and over. You need 10 to the 123 power chance of this happening in the universe for a freaking for it to turn into an amino acid. Why don't they start with plant life is what I want to know. Because we wouldn't even be in existence without plants. Not to mention plants can't survive without humans. Plants can't survive without animals. Plants need oxygen. Humans need carbon dioxide. Why is this balance so different? I mean, if you looked at the Bible and you looked at Genesis, evolution sort of describes how Genesis works. Man is the last one created. Evolution points that out. Plants are the first thing created. Evolution points that out. Well, no it doesn't. Evolution doesn't even consider plants. But if you looked at all the animals and birds and whatever, the fossil records show, obviously, what came first, what came second, I don't know. But if you studied fossil records and by the way, if you didn't know this, thermodynamics can show a young Earth, a very young Earth, an Earth no younger than 30,000 years. And sometimes thermodynamics shows an old Earth, sometimes it shows a young Earth. So this shows that thermodynamics isn't 100% accurate. So the Earth could be any age. So it's not proven how old the Earth is correctly yet. Layering, that's a different story. I don't know all the things that comes with layering of the Earth's crust. I know that many layers can happen within months, depending on how drastic they're going through, like such as ice ages and stuff. But then again, just many freaking things coming together. And then NASA, this is funny. NASA thought that when the space shuttle was gonna land, the space shuttle was gonna land on the moon. That when they thought Apollo was gonna land on the moon, they thought it was gonna be sunk deep in dust because they thought the moon was old. The moon gets like 1 inch of dust every year. These are renowned scientists from NASA. Thought the moon was going to get 1 inch of dust every year. 1 inch of moon dust every year. Well, they went 8 feet deep in dust. The Apollo did. And this shown it was a young moon. And NASA thought that the Earth and the moon were extremely old. Which is really weird. Extremely weird. And I think it's kind of funny how the bigger planets have a lot more moons. And because the bigger the planet, the faster it's probably going to the faster it spins. The faster it needs to spin. And I don't know what happens if it spins too fast, but I know that the bigger planets have more moons. And moons generally, they either slow down or speed up the planet. I don't know. I think they slow down the planet. And they control what's ever going on in the planet. If it's a gas giant, they control the winds or whatever. Mercury, on the other hand, is one of the smallest planets and it has no moon. Pluto has 1 moon, and the moon may even be bigger than Pluto itself. Of course, Pluto is not determined to be a planet. Then we have Saperita, Exodus, and by the way, the sun's gravitational pull of orbit is 1 light year. It's 2 light years in diameter, 1 light year in radius. Yeah, I know a lot of scientific stuff, but I was studying gravity and light and trying to discover the center of a black hole, trying to determine whether it's infinite or not. And I was discovering something totally new about time and space that I'll discuss later. I need to get a PhD before I can discuss that part, but for the other part, it's just plain logic. It's just plain logic. That's just, how do you block out God from your life when it says in the Bible, the world will know God. Guess what? The world knows God. Which is crazy, considering the fact that a lot of people, the people who don't believe in God, who don't want there to be a God, think that God's going to die out someday. And God's withstood the test of time, withstood the test of science, withstood the test of reality. And evolution turns out to be more philosophical than God, more disbelief than God. It's interesting. See, I can have science and God. I can study science and be comfortable with God. Physics, quantum mechanics. If you get really deep, and one of the reasons why Darwin thought that life can come from nowhere is because he thought that electrons at the time were ectoplasmic, and if a lightning bolt hit them, they would come to life. Which now we discovered they're more solid than ectoplasmic, they're more spaceful, and showing if a lightning bolt probably hits a couple atoms, it's probably not going to do anything but atomize or whatever. Like the way sand turns into glass when it gets struck by lightning. It's not going to do anything, it's just going to... What do you get if a mud puddle gets struck by lightning? You just get a puddle, right? You just get a very warm puddle. Well, he thought that if a mud puddle got struck by lightning, that it would bring life. Which that's been proven wrong. So evolution has come up with theories upon other theories, which it itself has no real base. It takes different apes that don't belong together with this weird ape-like thing that they're trying to make in between a man and a human. They probably have chimpanzees in there. They probably have Neanderthals. They probably have this, that. It takes all different types of apes, different types of human bones, and just connects them all together when a lot of the apes weren't even supposed to be a part of the human chain, which makes evolution look even more bad, more falsified. You know, I'm not trying to bash evolution, I just can't help it. My faith is on God. I believe in God and I love God. And I can have science and God together. You don't have to live without science and have God. You don't have to do that. Ever since I was 12 years old, I have always been fascinated by science. And I've always read my Bible. There are plenty of scientists out there who believe in God. There's plenty of biologists out there who believe in God. There are plenty of chemists out there who believe in God. And if you notice, physicists, there are some, quite a few that don't believe in God. But if you looked at quantum mechanic physicists, which is the modern physics, probably over 80% of those quantum mechanic physicists believe in some sort or another of a God, because every scenario probably needs a God for it to be there. Physics just looks at, life and the basic understanding, but they look at it all plain when quantum mechanics looks at probabilities, and life is really about probabilities. It's not always plain. If you take a bullet and you shoot it at something over a mile away, if you have it on a crosshair, it should hit the target, right? No. The bullet can be on the right of the target, the left of the target, the bottom of the target, over, down. It can be on the top of the target. Wind can affect it. Sound maybe might be able to affect it. Heat can affect it. If it tumbles or not, that could affect it. Its spin might be able to affect it. So no, not all of it's real physics. If you have to, you can apply quantum mechanics to everything, and you can discover that probability is really the way to go. And that's all I have to say. You see God more in science than you ever see evolution. In fact, evolution is constantly fighting science now. Constantly fighting against science. There are evolutionists that are constantly lying, constantly putting out false facts. And they're not found false until after they're scientifically shown false. And one evolutionist said, if the dinosaurs did exist at the same time the animals did and humans did, they wouldn't be able to fit on the ark or whatever. And if you looked at the size of the ark, it was half a football. It was 75 feet long, 45 feet wide. Forgot how tall. I think it was like 25 feet tall. Or it was 45 feet tall, 75 feet long, and 25 feet wide. It had like 1.5 million cubic inches, or cubic feet, which would allow it to fit every species at the time. Which is crazy thinking about it. Birds, lions, all that. Even dinosaurs would have been able to fit in it. I'm not saying I know 100% that that's true. And if you think I'm crazy for believing it, then that's fine. But science isn't against God. And I hope you find Jesus one way or another.